Okay, this video is quotes by Dr. John Mcdougall. The quotes are from this book, but they're not in the same order as they are in the book. It's just more convenient the way I'm doing it. Okay, so yeah, they're from the book here. Let's go to the next page. Okay, so the first quote is actually from, it's an anonymous quote. A lot of the other famous nutrition experts were jealous of Dr. Mcdougall. Just a fact, because he was the best expert. Okay, quote from Nathan Pritikin. The American Diabetic Association diet is designed to make sure the diabetes patient is never cured. So that was pretty funny. Pritikin reviewed all the literature on fat, and he came to the conclusion most Americans are diabetic after dinner because they eat a high-fat dinner, and fat causes insulin resistance, makes people fail oral glucose tolerance tests, and essentially test positive for diabetes. Okay, Dr. Mcdougall had noted, this is in the book Start Solution, that when he started out as a general practice doctor at sugarcane plantation in Hawaii, he noticed that the manual laborers would save up money, retire about 65 years of age, and the Philippine men in particular would go back to the Philippines, get a young wife, like her in her 20s, around 30 years of age. They would have a new family with her, and there was no Viagra in those days, and they would live healthy into their late 80s or even into their 90s. Meanwhile, the wealthier, more educated people in the cities were full of all the Western diseases because they ate a westernized diet, whereas these manual laborers were still eating a traditional plant-based diet. Okay, Dr. Mcdougall continues. The nutrition journals were more reliable before the mid-1980s when many of them were bought by big companies. Yeah, anything funded by a company, it's no longer really science most of the time. Most of the time something funded by a company just becomes advertising. Okay, Dr. Mcdougall continues. It's absolutely essential to get some sunshine. Vitamin D in a pill form is toxic. Pill form vitamin D can lead to increased risk of falls and fractures. Yeah, he would virtually never give anybody recommendation for vitamin D orally unless they were institutionalized and couldn't go out and get any sunshine. Dr. Mcdougall continues, Dr. Kempner is one of my heroes. Ansel Keys was a good man who did good research. Because on the internet you'll hear a lot of bad things about Ansel Keys. That's because they want to vilify the guy because he pointed out that saturated fat was so bad for causing atherosclerosis. It's kind of like how the sales game works. If you listen to the Paleo Keto Carnivore, they always say epidemiology is worthless. And that's because epidemiology proves they're wrong. So they say Ansel Keys was a bad man because Ansel Keys' research proves that they were wrong. Okay, they can't come up with data to support their diet because it's a ridiculous joke. It doesn't have support. So all they can do is say epidemiology is just a joke, that Ansel Keys was bad, etc., that sort of thing. Ad hominem. Okay, Dennis Burkitt, he was the first one. This is Dr. Mcdougall. Dennis Burkitt was the first one to tell me that diet had anything to do with disease. Yeah, as amazing as it sounds, in med school, you're not taught that. It's just simply never comes up. It's not in any of the books. It's rather bizarre, but that's how it is. Hard cheeses are the most acidic of foods. Yeah, and the higher the acidity you're eating, the more you're going to need to buffer the pH in your blood, and you're going to, release calcium from your bones, from your muscles, and you're going to then excrete that from your kidneys into your urine simultaneously. The hydrogen protons excrete the acid and the calcium, so you get calciuria. Increased calcium in the urine increases your risk of kidney stones. Some of that calcium can precipitate in your kidneys and produce kidney stones, okay, and it can progressively decrease kidney function. Okay, and those are some of the reasons why people end up in kidney failure. They end up in kidney failure because of atherosclerosis of their kidneys, because they're accumulating stone disease in their kidneys. F- also contributes to worsening of kidney function. All this atherosclerosis stuff is a big thing, and that includes all the subtypes of clot formation. Postprandial endotoxemia is included. Hypertension-related damage to the kidneys. Diabetes-related damage to the kidneys. Okay, Mcdougall continues. Populations eating meat, oil, junk food is just a blip in history the last 50 to 100 years. Before that, only the kings and queens could eat a lot of meat. And that's relevant too, because if you think about it, look at the studies, anthropology, look at the studies like where they've gone back and looked at the mummies and put them in CAT scanners. They had atherosclerosis, calcifications in their aortas and their proximal coronaries. So they had atherosclerosis, the kings and queens, because they were the ones, the mummies, the pharaohs, because they were eating the high-fat diets. Okay, in long ago days, before tobacco and air pollution and processed food, the kings and queens of the past who ate a lot of meat had atherosclerosis-related disease. Dr. Mcdougall continues, I'm the luckiest doctor in the world because my patients get better. And that statement, while it may seem straightforward, is actually a big statement. with conventional medicine, when you treat a dietary disease with a pill like diabetes, obesity, coronary artery disease, hypertension, they never get better. They got to take the pills the rest of their life. Okay, Dr. Mcdougall continues. You are not going to win in the medical business. The smart option is to get out of the medical business safely. You get out of the medical business by becoming healthy. Eat the healthy diet, exercise, get off your medications. Okay. We've already kind of talked about that last lecture. I've seen 3 generations raised as vegans. They're healthy and they are smart. One of the things you'll get an advantage of eating the vegan diet is you'll avoid a lot of toxins. A lot of toxins bioaccumulate in meat. So like look at fish is like one of the worst things. Fish is also super acidic, meaning it's going to promote osteoporosis. Okay, Dr. Mcdougall continues. What keeps me going isn't fame or fortune, it's my patience. The real reward comes from sitting down with one person and making a difference in their life. Yeah, that's one of the things that makes it fun to teach this nutritional stuff because, the patients are actually going to get better. In conventional medicine, they don't get better. They're a bunch of sad, pathetic old people that just go and usually never have any significant insight into their disease. They're just kind of like a deer with their head, in the headlights, lost, okay? And they just have no idea what's happening to them, all these naive, stupid things they say, and they just deteriorate. I feel sorry for them. When I get a chance, I do the best I can to talk to them, but most of the time, they're kind of hopeless, these old people. They don't understand. And you don't, as a doctor, you don't have that much time to talk to a patient. Unfortunately, it's just the way the system's set up. Doctors are in a hurry. There's a lot of pressure to go fast. There's no pressure to sit there and talk to a patient and explain stuff. Okay, what keeps me going isn't fame or fortune. It's my patience. The real reward comes from talking to a person, making a difference in life. Okay, I kind of said that already. Okay, here's the next statement. Oh, this one's actually coming from Roy Swank, the neurologist. He's the guy with the best results in the world for treating multiple sclerosis. He has over 34 years follow-up on multiple sclerosis patients. Fat causes red blood cells to stick together. That's a giant statement. Blood sludge, rouleau formation, you can call it. Rouleau formation means stack of coins in French. And a diet like this increases the risk of multiple sclerosis. The most important thing for preventing MS is to reduce the intake of saturated fat. So what does that mean? That means don't eat anything from an animal. Okay, here's a quote from Walter Kempner. Eating a low-protein diet lowers the workload of the kidneys. Yeah, about 75% of what the kidneys do is excrete nitrogen. So if you want to make life easier for your kidneys, decrease your intake of nitrogen. And there's no nitrogen in carbohydrate or in fat. It only comes from protein. So you want to eat a low-protein diet. Okay, Dennis Burkitt quotes here. Dennis Burkitt says, the only way we are going to restore our health is to go back to eating the plant-based high-fiber diets of our ancestors. Yeah, that's the thing is there's no way to make that expensive. You can sell probiotics or something, but basically people eat the plant foods. They're going to be much, 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 much healthier. Okay, Burkitt continues. People who eat high-fiber diets have larger, softer stools. If people have little stools, they need big hospital. And he would say other things like, if you have a bunch of people falling off a cliff, you can either build a fence at the top so they don't fall, or you have cleanup down below. Why not build a fence at the top? Meaning, why not prevent all these diseases? They're easy to prevent. He says if the sink was overflowing, why don't you just turn off the faucet rather than keep mopping the floor? And so what conventional medicine does is mop the floor. Anyways, that's it for this page 4, part 4 of Dr. Mcdougall quotes.